We are off to a very
Yep.
hot
There we
start, as
go.
apparently it auto plays the intro video now, and it was not loaded up on the correct intro video.
No, that's
So good
not.
stuff.
That's like a communication. You got to make sure everybody's on the same page. That's bad coaching. That's a bad teammate from me. Because when I've been doing instant reactions, you can like hit the like button, but you can load up the video so it goes at the same time. It's all right. Look, it's a first quarter, plenty of time. If you're gonna go down big, like you want to go down big early, so we got plenty of time to come back here.
Yeah. So let's see. I'll try to pull it back here. That was a rough start. But yeah, hey, we're gonna talk today a little bit, very shortly, about the Memphis game. We did instant reactions last night. You will see that same intro if you go and watch that video. Me and Jake did about 20 minutes on the Memphis loss, the horrible, terrible, unforgivable loss against the Memphis Grizzlies. Then we're going to talk about Tatum in comparison to some of the other players he's often compared to, and then like a check-in on the East, and then that's a little bit of Schadenfreude at the very end here.
Right.
So before we kick it off, though, please like, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. And we do have a Patreon. If you like our content, we are pumping out additional content, player like in-depth, deep dive player breakdowns, doing a podcast a week that is Patreon only, and then just a bunch of kind of random other one-off and sometimes more regular
playback replays, stuff like that. We're due for another deep dive. We got to figure out who we want to do. Derek White's probably. We can't do Pritchard again because that was the first one that we did.
Can't we?
Like, if you want to deep dive on Peyton Pritchard, you can just watch that video from like 3 to 4 weeks ago, and all of it's pretty much completely the same, if not gotten even more ridiculous and more impressive. So I would definitely recommend that. All right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Please subscribe to the Patreon. But all right, Memphis Grizzlies, Boston Celtics. Celtics end 5-7. Last game of 5-7. 127, 121. We covered a lot of it last night. The Celtics shot like absolute shit, namely Drew Holiday, who is, I still can't believe it, 4 of 17 from 3. Just kind of a tough loss. How you feeling with 24 hours to digest it, Jake?
Feeling good. I feel like I've been talking Celtics fans off the ledge the last couple hours here.
Yeah.
It's I would have thought that people would have, after last season and what we experienced, we'd be far more capable of dealing with that type of loss, especially like 5 games in 7 nights. If you don't want to give them full credit for the 5 games in 7 nights because Tatum and Drew missed a game or Drew missed 2 games, then like fine. They still played a really intense back-to-back against the Bucks the night before in just a hellish part of their schedule. And then the Grizzlies, again, they went nuts from 3. I guess I'll have a little comparison on last season versus this season before we move on. But I guess I'll ask you, like, they clearly decided to just put their center on Drew Holiday, which led to a lot of wide open catch and shoot threes. Do you think that would, like, Joe Mazzulla called that a brave strategy? Reminded me a little bit of the Golden State Warriors putting no one on Jaylen Brown. Ironically, Jaylen Brown was able to punish them despite being historically a worse shooter. Drew Holiday wasn't able to do it last night. So your thoughts on that strategy?
Yes. Like at halftime, we were doing the playback last night, and I was like, why don't we just have Drew run the pick and roll? If he's going to have the center on him, we should be able to kind of manipulate the defense in that way. And we kind of did, and he still really wasn't able to get a ton going. Drew just kind of looked like he just didn't have it last night. And when you're 33, 34 years old, and he's still playing a lot of minutes for us, not quite as many as last season, but like you're just going to have some off nights. And it's not like Drew is ever really been like, throw him the ball, he'll go get you a bucket type of guy. There's matchups where he can do that. And there's games where he looks really good doing that. This was not one of those games. So, and then we talked about it, and Mazzulla eventually went to this. He just played Pritchard instead of Drew Holiday down the stretch. And that, I think it gets them out of that type of defense, because you absolutely cannot do that to Peyton Pritchard. But it was almost a little too late, and like then Derek was missing wide open threes, Tatum was missing wide open shots, we gaffed a few layups. It just, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. So I think that is something that you don't over adjust for, because I think there's another game where Drew Holiday's like 10 of 17 if he gets those same looks. So I wouldn't worry about that being a prevailing strategy going forward.
Yeah. And there's definitely starting to become a real argument for Pritchard over how Drew in the closing lineup. I'm not sure I can get all the way there. I was kind of going back and forth with Trey on Twitter earlier
Saw
about
that.
it. And firstly, it's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
A lot of teams would love to have the choice to like maybe think that they should close with someone instead of Drew Holiday, because defensively he's still been fantastic for the most part. And the night before had one of his best games of the season. I do think it's time to put him on the Al Horford program. Like there's just no reason for him to have played last night. I get you've got the rest afterwards, so that's probably why they played and he rested previously, but or we're just reading way too into one game. As you said, it's very likely that this is the next, like if it's a series, the next game he punishes them and goes 10 for whatever. He took like 18 threes. So, and so that's an option. Yeah, Drew is the screener, put him in the dunker spot, or it's Hauser and Pritchard, because it's a bummer that Hauser got injured because he's been on a roll, and like having his size out there as well is, and the shooting is a nice wrinkle as well. Lots of good options. Don't need to overreact. Drew, he's gonna settle in hopefully at some point, but
Yeah.
the succession plan is staring us right in the face, and it's Peyton Pritchard. So there's nothing to be too worried about.
Yeah, and like Drew kind of started slow last year too. I mean, he was making his threes, but he was awful from 2-point range last season. So I think he's just kind of playing his way. Like he's not going 100%. And I think the one downside to Pritchard is Drew has like won us games defensively in crunch time. In the playoffs, he did it against the Pacers. He's done it a few times this season. Like the fact that he can just flip the switch on the defensive end, I think is like Pritchard's a very solid, very good defensive player. He ain't Drew Holiday. Just about nobody is Drew Holiday. So you definitely lose that if you go to Pritchard or Hauser in the closing lineup. And like it was painful to watch yesterday, and I know why Missoula did it, but I expect like when Drew's feeling good and feeling healthy, he's part of our best five. There's just no way he's not. He's Drew fucking Holiday, But like if we traded Drew Holiday tomorrow for like a wing upgrade, I would be perfectly comfortable with Peyton Pritchard stepping into his shoes for sure. And you're right, that's a very good problem to have. You mentioned like Celtics fans kind of maybe overreacting to this, which is funny because I noticed I was perusing Reddit, checked out like the Memphis fans didn't. They were like, whatever. They were on 5-7. Like, it's a nice win. We're happy about it. But like, these guys are really, really good. So it's funny seeing like some people in our fan base being like, I can't believe they lost a game. It's our 5th fucking loss, and it's the middle of December, first of all. And the Memphis fans going the like completely rational, cool fan base. I've never really had bad interactions with the Memphis fan base at all. They're one of my favorites.
Yeah, and just they're cool. John Morant's dunk is probably one of the coolest things I've seen all season long. And Z Gamer in the chat talking about Drew's 3-point shot. Like, I wonder what would happen if like he's 33% on the season now, but if you take out last night, I'm guessing he's around like 36, 37%. So like not the biggest deal. Yeah, he missed a lot of threes early last season as well. These sample sizes, when you talk about shooting, you really have to remember like when a player is very reliant on 3-point shots, like we've seen it with Tatum, any player can go through a dry spell. Sam Hauser goes through one every single season. That's like 4 to 6 weeks long. It just happens. You just hope that doesn't happen at the wrong time. Jayson Tatum went through one for the most of the playoffs last year. So it happens. But yes, it has been very funny to see the reaction of everyone besides Celtics fans. I will say, Celtics fans that are in the First to the Floor Discord and they're listening to this show and are in the chat right now, I will say for the most part are pretty relaxed and looking at it with the right perspective. But and Twitter and Blue Sky, you get a lot more of the vocal minority kind of coming to light. But like, it's been quite funny for me to see that. And then you contrast it with Jason Timpf being very positive and being like, this team's awesome. I don't care they lost. Kevin O'Connor, noted Celtics disbeliever all last season, being like, yeah, this team's probably even better than they were last year. And so that's been a funny contrast is like the national voices have been more positive and like we haven't really heard from them after Celtics losses as opposed to last year, every loss counted as like 5 losses. And it's funny to see that swing.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
it's
yeah.
really bizarre. It's really strange. So and like I mean KOC, like he was straight up, he picked Mavs to like destroy us, as I recall. So at the very
Yes.
least, he's like found the light and saw what we all saw last year, and we're like screaming from the rooftops, like you all are underrating how fucking incredible this team is. So it's nice to see them turn. It's just I just do not like what I have one of my very best friends is a doomer.
Yeah.
And he texted me like, how did the Celtics lose to the Memphis? And I was like, 5th game in 7 days. And his response was, they lost to 2 playoff teams in that stretch. Like,
That's good.
Like, yeah, like, yeah. And I was like, okay, like, is that really a big deal? But that's just how it's Boston local radio brained. That is how Boston local sports radio thinks about every team. They used to hate on Bill Belichick and Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's just no shame. So I get it. I know there's just a contention of a portion of the fan base who's always going to react like that anytime they lose. But I said it last night. You win 60 games, you lose 22. That's a lot of losses. This isn't football where the best teams lose 3 times. Like, you're going to lose 20 plus times in a season.
Yeah, and I think when you win the title, it creates this nostalgic feeling, especially the way that they did it last season. Like, all we remember is just bludgeoning every single team. And even in the finals, like, all we remember is kicking the shit out of the Mavs. But don't forget, they also suffered a broken record against them. The Mavs broke the record for the biggest win in finals history. Like, they lost, and like people kind of freaked out after that too. And me too. But like in like a, I knew it was irrational type of way. You know what I mean? Just like I just needed to win this thing. But so you look back, you know, you had the Dean Wade game, both Denver losses. Anyway, I've got from Steven in the Discord, kind of laid out some difference, like some compare and contrast through 24 games. Identical record, probably being the most important one. Better net rating this season. We've had way more injuries this year. The top 6 have played 1 game together so far, which is absurd. The non KP 5 have missed 16 total games. We had back-to-back losses against the Sixers and the Wolves. We lost to the Hornets, which was a back-to-back where Tatum had 45 in overtime. And they almost lost the night before to the non-Ja Morant Grizzlies as well. And then they got smoked by the Magic like a week later. You could very easily make a case that the Celtics this season have been more impressive. Not to mention their defensive ratings actually better this season. It's just that like defensive ratings are better this year. Is that what's been happening? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like very easily make a case that this Celtics team has actually been more impressive considering what they've had to deal with so far.
Yeah, I think it's pretty standard that offensive ratings climb as the season goes on, so defensive ratings get worse. So the fact that we've got a better I mean that's good news. The counter argument to that is it does kind of feel like the East especially has not really been bringing it to start the season, and we've had a fairly soft schedule, but like you can only beat who's in front of you. We've basically beat every good team we've played. I know we went 1-1 with Cleveland, but I think Jalen didn't play that game. So,
correct.
And he's super important against Cleveland because he's a really, yeah, right. Shit. I mean, that's huge. We're missing our 2 dudes who match up with Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Like that feels pretty important against Cleveland. And then a lot of our previous losses were before Porzingis got back or missing both Porzingis and Horford. So I think the injuries way outweigh the state of the other teams in the NBA that we're playing against. So yeah, I just think from the eye test too, man, like these dudes look so fucking in control of every single game they play. Whereas last year, like with hindsight, it feels like that. It did not feel like that at the time. Like the Celtics have played the most clutch games in the NBA this season, and they're like fucking 11-3 or some shit like that. Like these dudes are execution monsters. They turn the defense up exactly how much they need to, and it never really feels like they're threatened unless something funky happens, like a team shoots the absolute lights out, and they've actually been awesome when they don't make shots too. Like they were 6-1 when they shoot under 33% from three. So this team can kill you in so many ways. Like, and they just seem so, with the upgraded Pritchard and Hauser putting it back together, and I think looks really good defensively all of a sudden, is making shots, and Tatum is on another level this year, and Jalen's been great recently too. So they've been awesome. It's so predictable for people to look back on the championship season and be like, see, they're not that good anymore. Like, it's different this year. It's like, no, it's not, man. It's really not.
Do you hear yourselves, Celtics fans? Like, I actually can't comprehend it. Like, people that, and anyone can feel however they want. But when I see these people being like, oh man, it's just like Keith Smith, great guy, great content creator. Like, he had a tweet that, like, the second part of it said, the real issue is the defense. I'm like, there is no real issue. There's no issue. Like, they're not perfect. They're not going to win 72 games coming off a title. They're not going to win. No one wins 72 games. Like, as you said, you have to lose games. They do have the 29th ranked easiest schedule for the remainder of the season, according to Tankathon. Part of that is because they have the Sixers 4 times, which we're going to talk about at the end, and whether or not that's actually accurate. But that's heavily weighing into strength of schedule right now is people that have games against the Sixers, and Embiid played well today and looked good, but we'll talk about them later. But I think that's enough on Memphis.
It's probably too much on Memphis. But before we jump to Tatum, we're gonna read a little ad read from our friends at Game Time. There's nothing better than getting to a big football game early, hitting the tailgate, meeting up with some friends, and watching some of the best players in the world play some football. I managed to score some tickets to a Pats-Bengals game many moons ago, and I'll never forget watching one of the NFL's greatest quarterbacks, John Kitna, play some football. There's no better way to grab tickets to a football game or any event than Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. WVU basketball, we are on the way back to relevancy. 2 big ranked wins, just beat 7-1 Georgetown. So you better believe I'll be trolling Game Time for some tickets to the Coliseum to see DeVries and the boys whip the Big 12 this year. Just hop on the app, search for the game or team you're looking for. It's super easy. You're shown all the available tickets and all the best deals right on your phone. The curated deals make it even easier to find the best seats at the best prices. And maybe my favorite feature is a seat view. It'll show you exactly what it looks like from any seat before you buy. And when you go to buy, you just toggle on the all-in pricing. You won't be hit with any surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Boom. Game Time rocks. Super easy. Mountaineers are awesome. Hopefully we get ranked soon. Jake, you were muted. But yeah, check it out. Use that promo code. Support the show. Support the boys. Support the CLNS network, which has a bunch of other awesome shows other than us. So yeah, anyway. Jayson Tatum. Yeah. So this was kind of my baby here. My idea to talk about Tatum as he's compared to some of the other stars so far this season. And the guys I picked, I feel like the conversation with Tatum has changed. It's no longer, is he the 5th best player in the NBA behind Giannis, Shea, and Luka? Is he the 2nd best player in the NBA? Because it's Jokic. Jokic is number 1, period. Yes. So the 4 dudes I included to compare him with are Giannis, Shea, Luka, which I think is obvious, and because there's still people who think Anthony Edwards is this good, and he's fucking not. You know that meme with the dragon heads where it's like the serious dragons and then one goofy looking one? You will see very quickly Anthony Edwards is the goofy looking dragon. So Jake, just off the top, let's go on feels right now. Where do you feel like Tatum's going to ranks amongst this group of guys?
Look, I would love to have Tatum 2nd. And this is the closest it's been for me. And Noah in particular, Dalzell got roasted a little bit on Twitter about her. Because she just kind of had a passing comment on the post game, I think after the Bucks game, But yeah, like I kind of just think Tatum's better now. And I was like, oh wow, that's gonna get picked up probably. So I know my dad has moved Tatum into the number 2 spot as well, and
Official stamp.
official, yeah. So like that's important. Everybody knows that. Jake's dad, Mr. Eisenberg, important. And there is a case now. I would not lean that way, but I do think there's a case ahead of Giannis, Shea, Luka, and Anthony Edwards. We'll get to is obvious, but like we'll start with Giannis, I guess. Because I think I don't know. Do you have Tatum at 2 or do you have Giannis at 2? Because I think that's got to be the argument.
Okay, so when I looked at these numbers, I would have said Giannis, Tatum, Shea, Luka, Ant, several players, and then Ant.
Yeah.
I think it might be Shea at 2, dude. Like his numbers are fucking bananas, and his on-offs. I'll just spoil it a little bit. He's the only guy with on-offs better than Jayson Tatum. And those two are not close to the other 3 guys. Like they are way above and beyond the other 3 guys. So like the argument, like Giannis's team is just shitty kind of compared to these guys. So it's really hard to evaluate him. But man, like he does not look good defensively. Every time I watch them against the Celtics, he did not look good defensively. Like he's obviously got positive defensive impact because he's 7 feet tall and athletic, but like he just seems sort of like out of position and he doesn't stay in front of guys like he used to. I mean, he's a monster on the defensive glass. But you can kind of guard Giannis in a way. Shea and Giannis are the 2 dudes without the shot. And Shea obviously is a much higher level shooter than Giannis is, but there's ways to scheme around Giannis. And I don't know if you can scheme around Shea, Luka, or Tatum, at least insofar as they're on offense. Like the defensive argument is obviously different from Luka. So I don't know, man. Like Giannis but he's just so fucking ridiculous offensively. Like, so I almost feel, I think I'd have Shea second right now, though. I really do, man.
Yeah, I think they all are in that tier for me. I think that, and that's like the most important thing. Like that's what I think pissed most people off about Timph. And if you're listening, I'm going to be asking you to come on the podcast. I'm trying to. You're starting to see the light. I can see it in the content. I can see it in the tweets where he didn't have him in the same tier, and that's where I'm just like, look, if people want to have these other guys ahead but in the same tier, then fine. But like, that's the thing about Giannis and. Having Shea at 2, what I'll say is like, can we see him get out of the second round?
That's fair.
Can we see him get out of the second round? Because like we saw him in the playoffs last year, and their offense kind of fell apart. And part of that is because he doesn't shoot threes. And so like in the game 6 that they lost, what did he have? He had like high 30s. They needed like 40 something, and he is Mr. Consistency. And this year he had his career high, which is 45. And like, am I making that too big of a deal? Maybe. But that's quite low for one of these guys. That's quite low. Like Tatum's is 60. He has had a bunch of 50-point games. He has the 50-point game against Philly. He had the 46-point game against Milwaukee, which was like kind of a parallel game. The Thunder were on the road down 3-2, and he was not able to give them the 46 that they needed. He gave him he's Mr. Efficiency man. But they needed more. And Tatum, when like he has that 3-point shot going and you go 8 for 12 or whatever it is from 3, like I think the ceiling for Tatum as a scorer is higher. Clearly. Just like more points. Like if you're going to shoot 14 threes and have the ability to do it and knock them down, that gives you a higher ceiling. So I want to see the playoff stuff. That would be the argument. That's my kind of my boomer take on Shea. It's like got my Bill Simmons, like can we see it a little bit? But like statistically this season, you can't make a case that you can easily make a case that he's been the second best player in the league. The on-off numbers are crazy. And then what you're saying about Giannis, he did it once. He won the title, but man, they got lucky, and we've seen. The reason that they've been knocked out of the playoffs many times been because their offense just completely bogs down and they can't get anything else going. His the Giannis, in theory, is like this incredibly versatile guy. Like you look at Tatum, you look at Giannis, like why can't Giannis kind of be the same level of versatile guy on both ends? But yeah, he's not as quick-footed defensively as Tatum, and then offensively, obviously he can't shoot. He doesn't screen anywhere near as much as like everyone thought he was going to when they made the Dame trade. So like he doesn't actually feel the role of Tatum. Actually sets probably. I would love to see the screening numbers. I can't find those sometimes or ever. Like who's setting more screens. But when I watched the Bucks today against the Nets, like down the stretch, like he just doesn't set screens. It's more just like Giannis ISO. He goes full back dive into the defense and then kind of sprays out to shooters, and that's fine. But like trading for Dame doesn't make sense then. Whereas like the Tatum Derek 2-man game is way more effective than the Giannis Dame 2-man game, and that just should not be the case. But the fact that he's just like this physical force and he puts up 33, 34 on 65% field goal percentage night in, night out. I see the case for Tatum ahead of Giannis, but right now for me, I just like the gap's closed, but I just can't quite get there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think if you look at this as like we're starting a playoff series tomorrow, who do I want as my number one guy that's not Nikola Jokic for that play, and you don't know your opponent, I think the answer is Tatum. Yeah. Just because there's no opponent that's a bad matchup for him. All of these other guys have teams where it's like, well, shit, that's a really bad matchup for you. We are the bad matchup for Giannis. We're probably the bad matchup for all of these guys, correct, frankly. But if you can kind of slow Giannis in semi-transition, and you put the ball in the hoop and make them pull it out of the basket and keep Giannis out of semi-transition and have like big bodies to throw at him, you can kind of limit the damage insofar as he's still going to get his, but it'll be less efficient and he won't be diming people up. And that's really the problem. Like when Giannis gets it going, you have to send doubles and then he can start finding shooters. That's when Milwaukee becomes absolutely unstoppable because you can just throw it to him like at the high post. And if you ever bring double every time he's got it in the high post, you are fucking dead. The Celtics don't have to do that because we have Al Horford. And I think Shea is, it's just when you're a guard, when you're 6'4", 6'5" guard, and most of your game is made in the mid-range and in between game, that's really hard to generate a shitload of points in the playoffs. Just doing that against defenses that are trying 100% and scheme for you, to do that and take over a game is like fucking impossible over 4 rounds. And then Luka has the defensive issues, but Luka offensively, he also can't shoot this year. He's at like 35% from 3, which is like good enough, but fucking barely. But with like Tatum, it's like whatever you give him, he will take. And that's what makes him such a deadly weapon. Like he's probably not the best of any of these guys at any one thing, but he's like second at everything. You know what I mean? Second or third. And it's I think that's a difficult type of player for like non-Celtics fans who don't watch him all the time to like understand what the true value of somebody like that is, which is why I think he's underrated.
Yeah. Every single night you go into a game or a playoff series, you're like, okay, well, Tatum is like the queen on a chessboard. He just has the ability to do whatever you need him to do. And that's how they won the NBA Finals so easily, essentially. It's like, okay, fine. We'll just put Tatum on Lively. We'll just put Tatum on Gafford. And we did it all playoffs. It's becoming more and more of a thing. And I'm really excited to see it as he continues to get bigger and stronger, his ability to guard up and down, like the way that he locked up Dame in the perimeter in the Bucks game as well. It's just like you can't give anyone more jobs than you can give to Jayson Tatum. Like no one does like more different things for their team than Tatum. Even Jokic defensively, right? Like the versatility to a point matters. With Jokic, it doesn't matter because he's just so destructive offensively, and he can like at least just be 7 foot and protect the rim and completely wipe the boards on the defensive glass and the offensive glass. But yeah, Tatum can just literally do whatever you need him to do. And like we've been saying that, you know, he's the second best playmaking wing in the league. With what's happening with LeBron and his like pure passing ability is going to be LeBron until he retires, but like the ability to be a good playmaker, you have to be able to leverage your own scoring gravity. And when you talk about possession after possession, week after week, 82 games, playoff series, can LeBron actually playmate to the level that we kind of think he can? Still, not really. So maybe like some of the passes he's throwing at the moment, like the 2 left-handed passes in the Bucks game, like he is right there as the best playmaking wing in the league as we start to see the drop off from LeBron now. So yeah, that's a great way of framing it. And that's like the most important question. It's like, okay, who are we playing in the playoffs? Mystery box. Well, I know if we've got Jayson Tatum, it's not going to be a bad matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And real quick, I think kind of what highlights this is the on-off differentials. And Shea does have some of that, like Tatum. His shooting is gonna be a problem. Like, I really think so. And he's like, I don't know if he's even that bad. He's just so reluctant to get him up from 3. But Shea, I feel like, has become a really good defensive player. I was pretty harsh on his defense up until like really last year, but he gets into passing lanes. He gets steals, and he's 6'5" and athletic, but like the on-offs I think are really interesting. Anthony Edwards has a negative on-off differential. The Bucks are the Timberwolves are worse when Anthony Edwards is on the court this year by 0.8 points per 100. So not a ton, but like that's a bad sign. That's not a good sign. Giannis plus 0.8. That's it. Their defense is horrible when Giannis is on the court. Their offense gets better, but their defense is like a 115, 116 defensive rating. Not great when he's out there. Luka plus 6.24. That's like, hey, you're a very good all-star level. Tatum plus 12.9. Shea plus 13. These guys are double the third place of Luka Doncic. Double. And that ain't about like, well, he's got a super team. That's why his team is the Celtics have a negative net rating when Jayson Tatum is off the court. Like, how's that for a fucking super team? They are the worst team out of all of these when Tatum is off the court. Like,
yeah, don't love
how's that. Yeah, right. That's not ideal. But for the Tatum agenda, yes. It is a huge feather in his cap.
Yeah, part of it is we haven't had KP for the entire season for the most part, right? So like that's because last year they weren't negative with Tatum on the court. They were awesome with Tatum on and off the court. Yeah, so it was just KP played 57 games last year, and they were incredibly healthy. This season, they actually haven't been that healthy, and Tatum's carried a lot of these games that we've won without some of our best players. And so, yeah, man, like, and even looking at the scoring efficiency for Shea, it dropped down to 58% true shooting in the playoffs. Like, I really think that you're onto something with that. Like, if it's all going to be mid-range, everybody starts to suck in, and the Ant thing, I mean, like,
it's a joke.
My favorite stat is like the Tatum led the Tristan Thompson, Daniel Tice, Evan Fournier, Romeo Langford, Shemi Ojale, Kemba Walker with no knees team to a top 10 offense with long COVID. It's like, what are we doing? Like, and Ant even last season, that Wolves offense I think was 18th. I forget what they're in like the mid-teens again this season, and it's just like, if you're going to be that guy, then it should just be higher. That's just how it works. It doesn't even matter really what the talent is around you. You should be an offensive engine unto yourself.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I mean, like, Shea is a good playmaker. Is he better than Jayson Tatum? I don't think so, man. Like, he's got a lot more of the ball, and he's asked to do a lot more with it. So his assists are going to be higher, but like, he's not making high.
Way up.
Yeah, right, exactly. He's just got way more of the ball. Like, if we did the Luka thing with Tatum, he would be at 8 assists a game, maybe more.
Easily.
So yeah, and like the advanced stats, like LeBron, Shea's first in the NBA, Tatum second, Luka fourth, Giannis seventh, Anthony Edwards 31st. Darko DPM, Tatum second, Shea third, Giannis fourth, Luka sixth, Anthony Edwards 13th. EPM estimated plus minus. Shea second, Luka third, Tatum fifth, Giannis sixth, Anthony Edwards 25th. So like Anthony Edwards is not in this conversation. Like, he's just not anymore. So I think what the advanced stats were really telling us essentially is that, like, it's a fucking toss up between these four guys. And it's probably really about how your team is constructed. But that just makes the Tatum point even more because it doesn't fucking matter how you construct your team. He's going to make it work.
It reminds me of when I saw a take like, I can't wait for the day that Tatum has no stretch big and everything's going to fall apart around
Tristan
him.
Thompson.
I'm like, yeah, going back to the Tristan Thompson thing. But yeah, and then also but the season before that, Daniel Tice, shout out, legend. Yes, he shot. That was a shot that he was given by defenses. He was not a stretch big. They had a good offense again, and Tatum led the team to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Celtics offense, when it's Tatum, Luke Cornett, and the other guys, incredible. Like, Tatum just knows how to run an offense. Tatum in the bench has been fantastic for years, and that often has Al Horford and or Kristaps Porzingis not on the court at the same time. So it doesn't really matter what it looks like. But yeah, exactly. Like, all these guys are in the same tier, but I don't think it's a question about who's the easiest to build around. I think that's like the easiest and most obvious and greatest thing about Tatum is the versatility, and it cannot be overstated how valuable that is when you're trying to build a team.
Yeah, and on your Luke Cornett point, when Tatum and Luke Cornett share the floor, they have 125 offensive rating, which would easily lead the league by like 4 points per 100 possessions. So like that criticism of Tatum, like he's feeds off stretch centers, actually not the case. He's actually more efficient. The offense is better with Luke Cornett and Tatum.
Rob
than
Williams
it is with,
forgot about.
Yeah,
So sorry.
Right, yeah, right. Rob Williams, dude. Like that is not a real criticism of Tatum. It turns out he's just really, really fucking good no matter who you put around him. So I don't know. That's probably enough on Tatum, but push come to shove. Did I just convince myself Jayson Tatum second? Maybe. I think I did, Jake. Yeah.
I'm happy to be convinced that it's second. I think if the question is you don't know the playoff opponent and the answer is Jayson Tatum, then maybe the answer is just Jayson Tatum.
Yeah. I think that's where I'm going for it. All right. So we're going to jump around the East, kind of a little East check-in. But before that, we have a message from our friends at Prize Picks.
Prize Picks time, baby. Make your holidays bigger and better with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while you're watching your favorite sports. Can't wait to be on the couch for 12 straight hours on Boxing Day in Australia, Christmas Day for the States, where I just have multiple screens going for both the NBA and the NFL. You can now win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks. Join now because the holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards this Pickmas. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your money. This is simple. I said it last time. It's Peyton Pritchard season, man. I don't care what the number gets to. Well, if the number starts getting into the high 20s, and maybe we can start to have a chat. But until that adjusts like that, just keep riding this guy till the cows come home. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Woo.
Beautiful. Yeah, man. Get in there. Prize Picks, Celtics, overs, Jayson Tatum assists, overs, easy money. Or more than, I should say.
More than, yeah. We'll cut that. Anyway, so Jake, what do you got for us around the Eastern Conference?
I guess we'll start with the most recent news of the day. Miami Heat, noted allies of the Boston Celtics, took down the Cleveland Cavaliers. And yeah, stop me if you've heard this one before. Offensive rebounds for the Miami Heat. Random creator player Drew Smith hitting daggers and grabbing offensive rebounds to take down the Cavs. I posted that meme of it's James Franco with the noose around his head, just being like, first time ? Yeah, we've been there. Tyler Hero magnet ball game. Like they played all the hits. Mobley did leave the game after the first half with an ankle, and I went back and looked for the Cavs. They have been very healthy, especially with their top guys. Like Jared Allen, Mobley, Garland, and Mitchell have all played 23 or more games. I'm pretty sure they've played 25 games. So That, and even though they lost today, they still shot 40% from three, or they were at 40% from three until like the game got away from them there. Like eventually the shooting's gonna come back down to earth, and they're not gonna win all of these games. So good to see that they're human. And now, yeah, it does last night's loss doesn't even matter. And we're now one game back. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's great. And like when the Cavs cool off, I will be really interested to see where they actually settle down as far as offensive rating and things like that, because
42% again today, and they lost. How embarrassing, dude.
Yeah. That would never happen to the Celtics. Yeah, like weird take about Miami really quick. After Miami, the Miami fans conceded defeat, they came to Twitter and said, Celtics, you own us. It's over. It's no more rivalry. I think I could see myself really enjoying watching other teams get Miami heated, right? Like now it kind of takes like the edge off a little bit.
Oh, absolutely, dude. This was fantastic. I was like, Jimmy Butler's in the paint, pump faking, getting to the line. They had like 17 free throws, I think, in the
great
first
call.
half. Yeah, like I've always said that Jimmy Butler gets a fair whistle. So it's been nice to see. To see someone else like have to go through it. Like we know how to deal with it. He is such a weird watch, especially in the regular season. Like he was getting the Garland matchup on and just like getting 2 feet in the paint, or like having a live dribble in the paint with Garland on him, and then just like passing out of it. And I'm like screaming at Jimmy, "What are you fucking doing, dude? You are great in the mid range. Just shoot right over the top over Garland." But didn't matter because they also went 43% from three on their own. They've been solid. They've been solid lately. Like Jimmy Butler, he was kind enough to miss kind of just our game, which I appreciated, honestly.
Yes.
So he's played kind of the bookends of when they played the Celtics. And Tyler Hero has been fucking unreal this season. Like, no problems against the Celtics, hilariously. But again, like tonight, he was 34 points, 10 for 19, 5 for 9 from 3, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. Like, he is their offense now. He is by far and away everything that they do. And offensively, he just kind of looks like Pritchard with more responsibility right now.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Yeah, he's averaging 24 a game, shooting 42% from three. Like, I mean, he's still, in a playoff matchup, I had not worried about Tyler Hero, but credit to him, dude, because he was like running his welcome out in Miami last year. He had a really up and down season. So he's been killing it, man, as much as it kind of pains me to say, because I hate that motherfucker. But yeah, Miami, they've righted the ship. They're 11th in the NBA in net rating in the last 2 weeks, 5-3 in the last 2 weeks, which feels about right for Miami. 11th in the NBA, 12th, something like that. So real quick, Knicks first in the NBA in net rating the last 2 weeks, Celtics 6th, Atlanta 7th, Cleveland 8th, Orlando 9th, Miami 11th, Chicago 12th, Milwaukee 14th, and the Philadelphia 76ers 15th. They have the Sixers have risen to average over the last 2 weeks, I'll say.
Yeah, look, the Sixers are alive. I will say that they are 4-1 in their last 5 games. Like, that's what they need to be doing, is winning games. Joel Embiid played today for the first time in a few weeks here, and he looked good. I had them on one of my screens. Today's football day, so secured both buys in both of my fantasy leagues.
Nice,
very exciting. But Joel Embiid statistically was fantastic, and defensively was really, really good. From what I saw, let's see how many minutes he played. 33 minutes tonight, put up 31 points despite missing all of his threes, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, 6 turnovers. Here's my spin, Spoonie. I think it's actually good for the Celtics, for the Sixers to right the ship, because they're going to be, as they always are, competent enough in the first/second round. And they'll probably lose in the first/second round. But they're just not beating the Celtics. But they're good enough, I think, to give someone else trouble, give someone like Cleveland 7 games, give essentially anyone else a 6 or 7 game series, to the point where they put miles on another team. So them sneaking in to the 7, 8, 6 seed, hopefully, like actually turns out to be potentially good for the Celtics because like maybe Cleveland gets the Sixers in round one. That would be like, ooh, because I would much rather play the Sixers and the Cavs. Even if in the vacuum the Sixers end up being like quote unquote better than the Cavs, I'm much more scared of Donovan Mitchell in a series than I am of Joel Embiid in a series.
If that take was a woman, Jake, I would take it on a very fancy dinner because I'm really in it. I'm really into it. And maybe in it after the date. But I love that team. That's basically what they did to the Knicks last year. I mean, they made that series a war, and then the Knicks lost in the second round because they were pretty worn out and they had a bunch of guys hurt. So that's a great point. And yeah, I am like totally not afraid of the Paul George Sixers, man. Like, so, and I do anticipate, like, I thought they were going to be really, really good coming into this season. I did not. And yeah, right. I'm an idiot. That is the lesson as always. But like when Paul George and Embiid are healthy, that's a very, very good team and one of the best teams in the East. You're just not going to get that a ton. So, and with friggin' Jared McCain, who I believe has cooled off some, but he is a legitimate good NBA player. Unfortunately, they're right up there as one of the better teams in the East. So that's a fantastic take. But man, they got a lot of fucking work to do. And some of the other East teams are figuring out Atlanta is 6-1 in the last 2 weeks. So they got a lot of work ahead of them, but if they're in the play-in, I expect them. If they're in the 7-8 game, I expect they'd be the 7 seed, and that might be us in the 2 seed, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, so I think it's going to be hard for them to get to the 6 seed. Obviously, it's very early here, but like we played the Bucks. They almost lost to the Nets today, but they've figured it out where like them going under 500 for the rest of the season would be surprising, and like the Sixers are far enough behind them, like 5 games back, so for them to play 5 games above 500 is like a pretty good record for the remaining 60 games. And so to catch them, I think will be tricky. I don't know. I guess it's going to be hard to catch Atlanta too, maybe. Like I know Atlanta got smoked by Denver tonight, but Denver needed that bounce back win in like the worst possible way. Like we'll see the wins that the Sixers have had, I'm guessing. But this is the thing with the East. Like, if you right the ship and become like above average, you're going to have an easy schedule night in, night out. That's just kind of like how it goes. So if they right the ship, it's impossible to know what's happening with Embiid's knee. Like, this injury is essentially just like roll the dice. It might be fine for a month and then he's out for 2 weeks. It might be fine for a week. He's out for 3 weeks. He might be fine for 2 months and be out for a month. Like, we just do not really know what's going to be happening with Embiid's knee, but he played 1 game today and he was fine. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, like I think like when healthy, I still think that they're going to be better than pretty much like better than Orlando. Oh, I mean, Orlando probably is next team we have to talk about here. But like,
yeah,
like I still don't trust the Knicks and their defense. Like their offense has been elite, but defensively, like they got smoked by the Pistons yesterday. No Towns, but yeah, it'll be hard for the Sixers to catch. Man, 7-15, that's their record still. Like despite going 4-1, so that just kind of tells you what they have to do to get back in this thing.
Yeah, man, it is a long hill to climb, and like you said, like Milwaukee's figured it out for the most part too. So like, I don't expect Milwaukee to play 500 ball for the rest of the season. Make up 5 games is really, really fucking hard. So, but the team that we could see dropping is Orlando, and you hinted at it. Like Franz got hurt. It was an oblique, I think, tear, right? Same thing Paulo had. Which is just brutal for the Magic fans, man. And they were playing really well with like Franz heliocentric ball. And I know you're our number 1 Franz fan. I also have him on the fantasy league. He's been my keeper for a couple years. I was waiting for him to pop for so many years as a fantasy keeper. And then finally I get it and he goes out. So we're big Franz enjoyers, and you're our number 1 Franz enjoyer, Jake. So yeah, where are you at with that?
What a bummer for Magic fans, dude. Like, firstly, you get the gut punch of the Paolo injury, but at least that leads to this Franz renaissance. Yeah, I was trying to think of a German word for Renaissance, but I could only think of far more destructive words for a society, and that's not what Franz Wagner is. Thankfully, building that German reputation up one W at a time. But to lose now Franz for 4 to 6 weeks, and 4 is reevaluation, so we're looking at probably 6 weeks. Paolo trying to come back in December, Christmas time is the optimistic target. We'll see, man. They're gonna still play really good defense, I bet. This Magic team's kind of psychotic, so I bet either they can kind of still scrap and claw to an okay record, but they're not going to be able to do what they've done with Paolo out. And then on top of that, they've ruined the NBA Cup because they were supposed to play at Milwaukee this week, and now Milwaukee's going to get a free ride to the finals? No, to the semifinals.
Yeah. To the Eastern Conference Finals or what? I don't know.
Everyone's Conference Cup Finals.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. Yeah, a free ticket to Vegas. That's what we'll say. Yeah, man, it sucks. Franz is really awesome. I like that Orlando team a lot too. They're a pretty non-aggressive fan base as well. But maybe it's Suggs time. Maybe you just give the ball to Suggs and Anthony Black and see what happens, man. But a team short on ball handlers loses the guy who is doing all the ball handling. That is tough.
Shout out Mike in the chat, who hops on playback sometimes with us as well. The German word for Renaissance is Die Wiederbergt, which sounds like I'm killing my own name. So fantastic tidbit in the chat here. Look, you learn a lot here at First to the Floor. You never really
do,
know.
yeah.
But yeah, man, I kind of hit on the Knicks and losing to the Pistons yesterday, which was fun. And then the other piece of Schadenfreude, the Nuggets losing to the Wizards yesterday, snapping the Wizards' 16-game losing streak, despite Nikola Jokic having a 55 efficient, 14 rebound, 9 assist bomb. For that game to be close, let alone actually fucking lose the game, is insane to me. They've bounced back today and actually got a nice win against Atlanta with 20-point W, but that honestly I can't comprehend that that's actually happened.
Yeah. Well, look, Jake, it's difficult to comprehend when Jordan Poole happens, but he comes nonetheless. Jordan Poole is inevitable. Yeah. I'm not going to. Yeah. I mean, Mike's joke here in the chat is also very funny, which given the German history with Jews makes sense. Yeah, indeed. Yep, right. I'm going to leave it at that, but what a insane game. And we were flipping over to it on the playback and just in total disbelief, until there was 2 minutes left, we were the Nuggets are going to win this game. Jokic will figure it out. And then it just kept happening. So look, I think if anything, that's why we don't freak out about losses, man. This league is full of extremely talented players. You can just catch Jordan Poole, who took 23s last year.
Literally.
Or last game. Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, and he made 9 of them, and you might lose that game. It can suck, and it happened to one of the greatest players of all time last night against the team who maybe not after last night, but going into that game had the worst net rating of all time. That the Wizards aren't just bad; they are currently the worst team ever, and they're still gonna win 10 games, and you just hope not to be one of those teams.
It is crazy. So that's the path, and that's why we're tracking it Schadenfreude-wise, is to Tatum's MVP, because he's going to be in the mix with these other guys that we talked about. But if Jokic gets to the 4th or 5th seed, he's going to win the MVP, and he should win the MVP. But right now, as it stands today, he's the 9th seed, and I don't think he'll win the MVP. The problem with that is he's also 2 games out of the 4th seed, and that's just the reality of being in the Western Conference. Is you're 12-10. That gets you it actually has leveled out a little bit now in the East. So now 12-10 actually is the 5th or 6th seed in the East, as opposed to being 3 games below 500 gets you the 6th seed in the East. But yeah, the Nuggets are, they're 1 game behind Golden State for the 5th seed. So we're gonna need them to lose more. But I'm just genuinely curious to see if Jokic can sustain this, because he is having to do one of the most insane carry jobs I can remember. This goes back to the James Harden days. when he was having like 40% usage, and like Jokic doesn't want to play this way. And it's not the same because Jokic like gets rid of the ball so quickly, but the amount of touches and like the amount of shots that he's taking compared to previous years are completely different level to what he's used to. So I'm just genuinely enjoying watching him put up these types of numbers and enjoying it even more when they lead to losses.
It is so insane that he can basically just flip a switch and be like, I'm going to drop 37 every night. Like, cause that's what we need. They need me to do. Their championship year, he had games where he'd shoot like 11 times, dude. Like, and they dominate and they'd be absolutely incredible because they had good Jamal Murray, Bruce Brown, KCP. So, it's nuts, man. This is like, if you don't really watch other teams other than Celtics and you just need to watch some Nuggets games and see what Jokic is doing, because the thing is, it's like not impressive looking, kind of, you know what I mean? Like he just kind of like puts a show, like it is.
Well, you're like, what do you do? Graceful. It's like, you're just like that over the each shoulder hook. Like there's just no one that can body him outside of Karl Anthony Towns, apparently. And like, even you look at the numbers from that series, Jokic was still insane. It was like Jamal Murray was really the main problem, and KCP was kind of bad too. And that team is shallow, and you can't keep shedding talent if your goal is to be a team that is a top 3 seed in the West year after year and to win NBA titles. But yeah, man, it's just like a feeling of helplessness when you play against Jokic, even if it's not like leading to wins. When he has the ball and he's just backing your guy down into the paint and just these little flip shots, his touch is, I mean, if you want some Jokic porn, like go listen to or watch the first 40 minutes of the Bill Simmons Ryan Russillo live show, and they're dead on with all of it. Like he is by far the best player in the NBA right now. And I as far as since I've like really gotten into the NBA, which is like the 2017 range, this is the biggest gap between the first and second best player that I have really seen when I've been watching like games night in, night out.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to think if there were LeBron years, but like even LeBron mostly had KD for a lot of it. And like Kobe was like at the peak of his powers when LeBron started. I think you're right, at least since I've been following closely, man. Like, and like Duncan was always there. Exactly. Like, so it's like Jokic, a full tier that's empty, and then the rest of the guys that we talked about tonight. It's pretty nuts. We should probably wrap it up there, Jake. We're approaching an hour here. Really quick, I got something coming out on Jayson Tatum's isolation game and how unselfish isolation play by Jayson Tatum. Jake just dropped something on Peyton Pritchard being perfect for Missoula ball. I don't know if you got anything else coming out soon, Jake.
Well, I think I'm going to write about just comparing last season and this season.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be, I think, and maybe just with a nostalgia framing over the top, and how like things, the further you get away from them, feel way less bad or way less good at times. So I think that's good to reflect on.
Yeah, so check out our stuff on Celtics blog, subscribe to the Patreon, like and subscribe. Thank you all for joining us. Chat, we are out. Peace.